So if you live under a rock, you might have missed that Robert Downey Jr. is playing Doctor Doom in the 2 upcoming Avengers films. But wait, he's Iron Man! How can he also play Marvel's greatest villain? Well, let's break it down. Here is what we know for sure so far. Number 1, Doctor Doom is going to be played by RDJ. Number 2, they called him Victor Von Doom by name. And number 3, he's going to be in both Doomsday and Secret Wars, and both films will be directed by the Russo brothers. Here is what we are pretty sure we know so far. Number 1, he will likely be introduced in Fantastic Four. Number 2, we know Fantastic Four does not take place in the main Marvel universe. And here's what I think is safe to assume. Number 1, I think the story will include Latveria, and Doom will be both a scientific genius that has a rivalry with Reed Richards, and also dabble in the mystic arts. I think these are non-starters with Feige for our 3rd version of Doom to finally be comic book accurate. Number 2, I think we will see a lot of Robert Downey Jr.'s face. I know there are theories online that this casting works because RDJ can just wear the mask the whole time and we'll never know that he looks like Tony Stark, but I just don't think that's realistic. Disney is going to want to get everybody asking how the Avengers, and specifically Spider-Man, would react to a villain who looks just like Tony Stark. And because of this, you can bet your ass that the Spider-Man-Doctor Doom relationship will be a huge part of the storyline. And number 3, I think Robert Downey Jr. is going to play this role nothing like how he played Tony Stark. He will be a distinct character as Doom. I don't think they get Downey to come back if he is just playing Tony again. I think the benefit, and maybe even the reason you cast RDJ, is you can get him to do cameos or even full scenes as Tony Stark without having to cut another massive check or having to keep a huge secret. I can all but guarantee that there will be some kind of weird hologram the Avengers uncover that Tony recorded before he died. And Iron Man is absolutely showing up in Secret Wars. You cannot do that storyline without bringing in the biggest heroes. And so if I were a betting man, I would bet Disney is already trying to court Tobey Maguire, Hugh Jackman, Chris Hemsworth, and even Ryan Reynolds to all appear alongside Iron Man in that film. Bob Iger is done taking chances here. He needs a surefire rocket to $1 billion+ and having part 1 star the biggest hero playing the biggest villain and part 2 uniting everyone's favorite franchises is the clearest path to do that. Whether you think it's going to be good or not, I think this is a huge win from a stock perspective. Disney shares will absolutely see a huge bump to their price as this movie starts to take shape. Alright, so now what do I expect at a high level from a story perspective? Well, I think Doomsday is going to look a lot like Infinity War, where the main character is essentially the villain, the way Thanos was in Infinity War. We're going to follow Doom throughout the whole film here. We're going to learn his backstory, watch the events unfold that ultimately give him control of the world, and ultimately set the stage for multiple incursions that result in Battleworld. The movie has to end with Doctor Doom reaching his God Emperor form from the comics and taking us into Secret Wars. And Secret Wars is going to be all about making a team-up movie with every character that has landed with audiences in the past. Marvel can't really treat Avengers 5 as a culmination to Phase 4 and 5 because nobody really had any attachment to the heroes of the last several movies. I'm not on the edge of my seat waiting to see how She-Hulk, the Eternals, and Ms. Marvel all interact with each other because I didn't watch any of them. So what does that mean? That means that they have to make this movie an homage to everything people did watch. So first off, what do I think this Doctor Doom will be like? Well, if you didn't know, the Russo brothers told Josh Brolin to watch The Godfather to prepare for his role in Infinity War, because they believed Thanos should see himself as the Godfather of the universe. I can only imagine where they will draw inspiration from for Doctor Doom, but if I had to guess, I would say RDJ would be watching the original Star Wars trilogy and modeling his performance off of Darth Vader. Now this is just a guess, but I think it works because Vader is intimidating, physically imposing, ruthless, and incredibly ambitious. All those words I think can describe Doom as well. Plus, the relationship with Obi-Wan can be reflected with Reed Richards nicely. That should be a big part of the story, and Downey proved he can play the heck out of an envious rival with an ego in Oppenheimer. Second, how does this Doctor Doom fit into the story? So in Fantastic Four First Steps, I would only drop hints and vague references to Doctor Doom, but not show him until the very end of the film. I think the First Steps is going to work as part one of a 3-part series to end the multiverse saga. It will have spanned 7 years by the end of this, so it's time they start wrapping it up. And even though it's been unpopular, if you can stick the landing, you can build some goodwill for the X-Men movies to come. I'm assuming Fantastic Four takes place in an alternate timeline and that the results of the movie will end with some type of incursion that lands the Fantastic Four, Doctor Doom, and Galactus into the sacred timeline. That means Doomsday will show a fish out of water Doom in a new universe, and that works great because we can watch him learn the few key things the movie wants to focus on, and we don't need to recap every series or movie from phases 4 and 5. Alright, so now for the big question. How does Doctor Doom relate to Tony in Doomsday? So I think the fact that Iron Man and Doctor Doom have the same face should be a complete cosmic coincidence. No multiversal variant, no body switching, no Tony Stark's gone evil. There's just a guy from another world who looks like Tony Stark, is smart like Tony Stark, has an ego like Tony Stark, but is not Tony Stark. Obviously, the fact that they look the same is going to be important. I think I would be really interested if the Avengers and the Earth 616 population want to trust and idolize Doom immediately because he reminds them of Tony, even if the Fantastic Four try to tell everyone he's dangerous. In Infinity War, the Earth got invaded by a guy everyone knew was bad just by looking at him, but this time they will be deceived by someone who is even more evil. As far as the story goes, we should jump right into the action. I believe the time between Fantastic Four and Doomsday will be when Doom essentially makes a name for himself in the new universe. The beginning of the movie will be a monologue voiceover from Doom talking about his past. He will talk about the death of both of his parents, and he will talk about how on his world he rebuilt a struggling nation, Latveria, and wants to do the same thing here. Whenever the incursion occurred and brought Doom and the Fantastic Four into Earth 616, the world got a glimpse of Galactus. They were horribly afraid before the Fantastic Four defeated him. However, Doom will be able to take credit for doing this. He will be heralded as a hero, a dignitary, and will become royalty in this Earth's Latveria. All of this will make for an epic backdrop in the trailers and help us skip over non-essential story beats. The movie will follow Doctor Doom seeking ultimate power, which will be all about securing 3 things. 1, Tony Stark's technology to build Doombots. 2, Doctor Strange's support to master the mystic arts. And 3, the vibranium reserves of Wakanda so we can mirror the Doom War storyline from the comics. He's going to accomplish this through deception, dedication, and finally force. He's going to be trusted in the beginning and be smart enough to position himself as the second coming of Tony Stark because he looks just like him. So this is how he's going to gain access to the remnants of Tony's tech, and then he's going to start playing nice with Doctor Strange to get whatever he needs to master the mystic arts. The Russos plus RDJ plus Benedict Cumberbatch plus Tom Holland was an absolute game-changing combination in Infinity War, so I want to see plenty of screen time dedicated to these two interacting. If Doom respects magic and is as smart as Tony but doesn't act like him, then him and Strange will actually get along quite well, and he'll absolutely get what he wants from him. As far as Spider-Man goes, they are really going to hammer the Tom Holland RDJ chemistry home, so get ready for that. I would love to see a scene where Spider-Man's spider sense goes haywire around Doom, kind of like they did with the Green Goblin in No Way Home. But because Doom looks like his hero, Peter hesitates just long enough for him to get the upper hand on him. So if Doctor Doom is going to be our de facto protagonist, and if most of the movie will involve the Avengers trusting him, then the Fantastic Four will sort of be our antagonists. The main conflict of this movie should be Doom trying to quell the threat of the Fantastic Four, who will be the only people who don't trust him. So he'll do everything he can do to divide and conquer them, as he believes they're the only ones standing in his way. Also, throughout the film, Reed Richards should be obsessed with finding a way to create a controlled incursion to send himself and his family back to their own universe. Because of this, he will largely ignore Sue, Johnny, and Ben, and Doom can pick them off one by one. As the story continues, Doom grows more and more powerful, and only once he launches a full-scale attack on Wakanda do the Avengers acknowledge him as their enemy and try to team up and stop him. They determine if he can amass vibranium to go with his Doombots and mystical powers, he'll be able to rule the world. Doctor Doom's going to be winning this big final fight handedly, and the Avengers will turn to the Fantastic Four for help. Reed Richards will feel he has no choice but to use his controlled incursion technology to send Doom back to his own timeline, thus sacrificing his family's only shot of ever returning home. But once he does execute it, Doom is going to reveal this was all part of his plan, and he's able to manipulate the controlled incursion to cause the collision of countless universes and create Battleworld. The movie ends with the Avengers defeated and God Emperor Doom sitting on his throne as we ready ourselves for Secret Wars. So there you go. That's how I think they can make this movie work. And I think Downey could end up being an incredible casting here, but please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hey, I really appreciate the support.